from Tony Robbins. He said a quote, a body in motion creates emotion. So if we could we all please just take a stand for just a second here? We'll channel our inner Tony Robbins.
Group hug or something?
Group hug. If you could do me a favor, if you could shake hands and introduce yourself with the person next to you, please.
Actually, this deserves a video. Sorry,
All right, guys. Now, if you could try this for me, if you try it one more time, and think of just your eyes, your smile, and your hands. So introduce yourself. Maybe it's, hey, hi, I'm Freddie. How's it going? Something like that. Try it one more time, but focus on your eyes, your smile, and your hands. Just try this for me. Oh, wow. And your name? Pleasure. You always All right, guys, let's try this one last time. One last time. This time, we're going to add in the heart. Now, before we try this, actually, I won't even articulate it. Let's try this. See what you can do by adding your heart into this piece. And whatever that means for you, I'm not going to preface it or start the conversation, but I'm just going to allow you to put your heart, your smile, your eyes, and your hands into introduction. So try it one more time, please.
Well, bring an emoji icon from Facebook.
Right.
So what are we doing here? There's competition now. Yeah, bring your heart into this, right?
All right, guys, you can take a seat. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah. So how did we feel? Where did that? What was kind of the idea there? Anybody?
Break the ice. I mean,
warmth and connection.
More connection.
Connection, right? And warmth,
Sincerity.
breaking the ice.
Focus on what you're doing.
Right. So because we did it 3 different times. First, it was just kind of like introduce yourself. Then it was, okay, let's try this eyes, smile, hands, and then finally we threw our heart into it. I'm just going to fast forward this. Why do you think I said the word heart? Could have said a lot of other words. How did it feel for you between the first and second time and the third time? Did it feel differently? If it didn't, no worries, but I was just curious. How did it feel on the last time when you introduced yourself with the person next to you?
It felt like shields down.
Shields down. Right.
I think in our case we used words that weren't just your typical, hey, how you doing? I'm Charles. Nice to meet you. Kind of a canned introduction.
Right.
It's more personalized.
Right. And so what I would say is as we're getting started, there's different ways to look at communication. And so when you think about communication coming from the heart, it's amazing the impact that you can have on somebody because there may be times. The reason why I'm here is through a networking event. I met Harjeet through Sundar. You guys know Harjeet Singh? So
who doesn't know him?
he's a character. I love him. We met at a networking event, and the perfect example that brings us back together was how we first met. Is I said, "Hi, my name is Freddie Silvera. How are you?" I had a nice smile, but it came from a very genuine place. It was like, "Hey, I'm Freddie. How are you? Like, I want to understand you." And, Dale Carnegie, a lot of what it's taught me is to be interesting. You have to be interested. Because nobody cares what you know until they know how much you care. And so it's really starting to understand that these feelings are a huge part of soft skills. And why I spent so much time on this in the beginning, we'll come back around in just a second. So today is already, in your name one more time? William. I believe it was William or Charles. You both kind of said something about connection. Right. So first thing first is always going to be connection. So today's about 3 things. Connection, consistency, and feelings. So connection, I think these are 3 great books that have helped mold me to understand this idea of soft skills and connection. Obviously, I work for Dale Carnegie, but I also think that that's one of the greatest books ever written in terms of if you want to connect with somebody. Has anybody in here read How to Win Friends and Influence People?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very old classic, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of great things in there. There's a new book that's come out by Tim Sanders, The Likability Factor. Very good stuff in there as well. And I'd end it with the Bible. However you want to look at it, my perspective in terms of the Bible is it teaches us how to treat each other. It could be as simple as that. I could have put the golden rule there, but that's kind of the perspective that I share with the books. So what I would say is what brings all the connection and the consistency and the feelings together is I would ask you to finish the sentence. People like to do business with people that they blank and blank. What would your...
Trust and like.
I should give you more mint jars.
Pass it down.
So there's this old adage, this old tale that people like to do business with people that they like and people that they trust. Show of hands, who would agree with that? Okay, so what this is about is soft skills being 85% of job success. If that's if that's a majority of success, it comes from, do I like this person? Do I like William? Do I trust Charles? You know, am I going to be able to put a $15,000 check into the IT services that, you know, Sundar is going to do for me? Well, I want to, first of all, I need to make sure I like the guy. And then I need to develop some trust. And then you grow through feelings. So that's how we'll bring it all together. So the first question, I think you might already know the answer to the first number. But 85% of job success is due to soft skills. There is a research from Harvard, Stanford, and the Carnegie Foundation that says 85% of job success, based off of a bunch of numbers, and they did all the science stuff, comes from these soft skills. 93%, anybody have a guess on what that is? More mint jars to the winner, please. So 93%, how about I'll give you a hint. If you broke 93% into two different numbers, if you were to break it into 55% and 38% to equal 93%, maybe that'll help you understand what the answer is to 93%. I'll give you one more hint.
That was much worse.
One more hint.
I'm lost.
On a 100% scale, the other 7% that's not part of the 93% is the actual words you say in communication.
Oh,
So,
No, it is.
Communication.
with that said, we come to Dr. Albert.
No.
93% of all communication is nonverbal. And so when we're talking about soft skills, 93% of how we communicate, this is factual stuff that Dr. Albert, much smarter than I am, I just help him facilitate his content, is about the nonverbals. And I would add, if this is something that's very of interest to you, I can pass this around, but on page 70 and 71, it goes through the breakdown of the numbers 55, 38, and 7, and it goes into some specifics around gestures, posture, breathing patterns, eyes, in terms of how your eyes are concentrated. So if this is something that really resonates with you, this is just more information about the 93%. So what I would say in terms of communication, it's so important for us to look at our nonverbals. So I would encourage you, maybe look at each other, if you can, for just a second, in complete silence for just 10 seconds. For 10 seconds, try to look at your partner next to you in complete silence. Ready?
10 silence.
Go. 10 seconds.
Yes. It gets a little weird after that, right?
3, 2, 1. Great. Okay, we can relax. Oh my gosh, breathe. How did that feel? How did that feel? Strange? Great. Awkward? I would say it's probably a little weird. Definitely. Anybody else? How did that feel for you?
Personal.
Personal. Can you describe more on that for us?
Well, when you're, remember what I said about shields up?
Right.
I mean, when you put more time in that, the shields are farther down and you observe a lot more.
Right. So we've started with this introduction. Hi, my name is Freddie, eye contact. And then now, as we're developing from this first initial impression, we've now stared at each other for 10 seconds. So I'm not going to have us do this, but from some of the training I've done, when I first got started, I was told that I had to stand next to a complete stranger and look them in the eyes in complete silence for 5 minutes. I mean, I'm not going to have us do that, but I'll just kind of give you what the nuggets were that came from that. The 5 minutes that I stared with my partner before, it's amazing what happens, because I'm just going to give you the preview, because I'm not going to have you do it, because it's actually really kind of tough. But the first like 2 minutes, we're we have that walls, that shield up, where it's just like, okay, let's just laugh it off. It would be like this. But then, absurd. What happens after the third and fourth minute is you start to realize 5 minutes is a long time. The second thing is you start to realize that you start to let the shield and wall go down to then really connect with somebody. I would encourage you, if you ever find time with your employees or whoever you're working with, to try this activity and just say, hey, I saw this thing, I want to just try this and see what happens. In that last minute, between the fourth and fifth minute, in complete silence with somebody, I did it with a stranger. I learned more about them in that last minute than I did when we had a full-on 20-minute conversation after the activity. Because what happens is after 4 minutes, the walls start to come down because you've been in it so long and you've started to actually feel this person. This person in complete silence is starting to tell you their story. My point with this is that 93% of communication is nonverbal. And I learned more about a person from them not saying anything than I did when they actually said something, which leads us to 7% is the actual words that are coming out of your mouth. So, the last one, 85%, 93%, 100%. The 100% one I actually made up. That's me. That's my number. Basically, that just means 100% is you. You being authentic, being genuine. And that's kind of where that comes from with your communication. So, I want us to try one more thing. Has anybody ever seen this idea of what you say versus how you say it? So try this for me. With a person next to you, if you could look them in the eyes, and with your nonverbals, with your actual words, I'd like you to say, you are amazing. With actually what you say, you are amazing. You're the greatest person I've ever met. You are my favorite character. Maybe this is your crush that you've had forever. I'm not even quite sure. Maybe this is like you're talking to your role model or your mentor. I want you to look them in the eyes and act as if it's totally positive. But the words that come out of your mouth be very negative. So it might be something like this. So it might be something like this. I hate you so much. You're just the biggest goofball, and I can't stand it anymore. But you know what? You know what I really don't like about you is that you're just a frustrating person to work with. But you know what? So if you could try that for me. So, maybe we'll just all talk to Sundar. So what I'm trying to say is, I won't have us do this, but right. And what I'm trying to get us to is that it's not what you say, but how you say it. Because how many times, maybe in work or in maybe a spouse or friends, where somebody said something like, go do the dishes or go do the laundry, but it was more how they said it that kind of set you off. Has anybody felt that before? Yeah?
Every day.
Every day. So that leads us toward
Me too.
So I guess I need to ask a pragmatic question. So
Please.
that, that demonstration you did there, I'm just somewhat analytical, and analyze it. As a project manager, I'm saying there's some mixed messages there. I'm seeing body language, eye contact, and the words aren't aligning.
right.
So I'm sensing that there's some conflict, there's some issues going on, I'm trying to figure out what's going on, 'cause it's not a normal behavioral exchange. So
Right.
I sense a problem.
Definitely.
But I don't know if that's where you're going, but it's just like, it's just kind of a weird thing, so.
It is weird, and that's why I think we practice it, is because we start to realize in terms of it's actually where we come from in our center, so it feels totally awkward. It's like, I appreciate the conversation and the question that you asked. This is coming from an authentic place, but if I say, oh, what's going on with you, I start to have these nonverbals, it doesn't match. And so what I'm trying to get to is that when we communicate, people are looking into what you present. A lot of times of what you say isn't necessarily create as much weight than how you say it.
Because it's not matched.
Right. So we'll get into that in a
Okay.
second. With consistency.
But, when he was, I'm sorry, what's your name?
It's Mark.
Mark. So what Mark was saying is true, where if you see people interacting and you see something, it feels like it's not comfortable and natural. As a project manager, you'll say, I can feel that. I walk in a room and I'll say, whoa.
Right away. That's right.
The alarms go
That's
off.
right, that's
So
right.
I think the concept that you were saying here is, when you see inconsistency, you know there's something going on.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Even with an individual or a group. I don't know if you've had that where you walk in and you go,
No, you can sense it right
what
away.
happened?
And
You
just
know,
by,
you can feel it.
just by our training, we jump into like an analysis mode, is there conflict here, is it that they're trying to ignore something, they're trying to champion something, or some sort of other alternative motive going on, just trying to problem seek right away. That's how we're training, But maybe that's
Or
not
you
what he's
can, you
getting
can
to.
find out. You can find out by asking the questions.
Yeah.
Like,
Probing
I better
questions.
learn
Yes. You find out what everyone's saying differently. You notice that there's one word that's going around the room. You go, now I have to find the source of that word.
Right.
But yes,
Same idea.
right.
And so where this comes from is, I think this is what brings us full circle, is that 93% of the communication is nonverbal. And so you're sensing that something's wrong. And so maybe that's where it comes into that analytical piece, where you're
Right.
looking at something and you sense it's wrong. And that goes in with your point as well, in terms of sensing, like, this isn't matching something's going on. Yeah. So this leads us to our second point. We've talked a little bit about connection and how to make that connection and what that's like. When we talk about consistency, these are 3 books that I've recognized and felt that have helped me to be more consistent. Anybody know a gentleman named Hal Elrod or heard of the book Miracle Morning? So Miracle Morning, Hal Elrod is actually sold, I'm not quite sure how many copies, but Hal Elrod actually is from the Sacramento area. It's been a greatly regarded book all over the United States, and he's from this area. It's a great book, I'd highly recommend it, but it's about consistency and it's about daily habits. The book to your right, the far right, speaks about consistency, and I can pass this around. To be completely honest with you, I haven't read the book yet, but I was given it today during lunch with a friend. And I'll get to what that talks about in just a second. However, I briefly skimmed through it and I was like, there's a lot going on here that's really good in terms of consistency and daily living. And you can kind of see it's by Tony Dungy. The last one in terms of consistency, in terms of what's helped shape me understand this, is actually through an app. And this is an app that can be downloaded. It's basically an app out of the UK that's been around for about 2 years that will read to you a book in 15 minutes. Some of the greatest books, Zig Ziglar, Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn, a lot of the great professional development books out there, it'll actually read it to you. So this relates to this consistency aspect because the National Association of Colleges and Employers each year puts out the top 10 soft skills that employers demand. And these are the top 10 in order. Number 1 being leadership, and number 10 being, I believe it's technical skills on the very bottom. So when you look at the top 10, the first 9 are pretty much all soft skills. The 10th being technical skills as a part of soft skills. So when we look at this is kind of how I sum it up into the top 5 soft skills and how we can actually acquire these. And I'll give you a quick couple of examples. When I worked for Pepsi, I actually managed the Walmart here down the street on Antelope, that big giant Walmart supercenter. as well as the Winco over off of Alberta. Is anybody familiar where that Winco is? You're familiar? So it's just around the corner. Well, Bobby was actually the store manager there at Winco, and I've always prided myself on being a good person and full of integrity. Well, when the rubber hit the road with Pepsi, I needed to meet a very important deadline one day. And so what I did is I exaggerated the truth slightly, because I told him he went on a vacation. And so once he went on vacation, it was kind of a bummer, because then my boss had pressed me to get this actual product in the store, which I wish wouldn't have happened, but that's just how the cards fell. Long story short, I had a conversation with his assistant manager, and I said, hey, I have this new product called Pure Leaf. And this is back when Pure Leaf was new. Some of you might know Pure Leaf, but it's a tea. And I want to bring a pallet of Pure Leaf tea into our store, into Winco. And she said, that's not going to work. You can't bring a pallet. That's way too much product. It's just a whole new thing. I don't even know if it's going to sell. I said, okay, well, how about a little stack over here? Long story short, she decided to put a stack of Pure Leaf over here. Well, the next day, product arrived, and a pallet of Pure Leaf, 6-pack Pure Leaf tea arrived in the back door of Winco. Part of it, I was in the right, and that was that the store manager, Bobby, wanted to bring this pallet. However, the communication wasn't there with his assistant store manager, so she wasn't on board with that. So what happened was then the assistant store manager saw the pallet of product that I put in the store. She called the big guy, Bobby, and said, why did he bring a pallet? I told him only a side stack. Well, if you told him a side stack, then that's what it is, because you are me when I'm not there. So this idea of soft skills is that I learned a valuable lesson there. I was being truthful to who I was because of what the initial communication was about with the store manager, Bobby. He went on vacation, which didn't help my cause. But what happened was I did what he wanted. He wasn't there. She was then the Bobby, and I didn't do what was in accord with that. So what I speak about in soft skills is consistently living with integrity as one of the most important soft skills, which Nace described as leadership. Because leadership starts with you. It starts with, am I constantly living an integrity life? And so that's probably one of the faults that I made in that remark. However, the other soft skills, initiative, is one of the most important things. And that is essentially taking the initiative is when somebody sees you as a leader. Adaptability and flexibility I could actually bring into tonight, because with Sarah and I, she's already smiling, she's like, I know where this is going. You know, when I first came in here tonight, I had this PowerPoint ready to go, and I was set to have this up, and we had some struggles. And Daniel and Sarah were kind of like, oh man, we're so sorry, but we don't have this cable, this cord wasn't here, and it's not going to work. I said, no problem, I can do it, it's fine. You don't even need the PowerPoint, it's okay, it's totally fine. Because in the soft skills dynamic, you're trying to create comfort for the other person. I had just met Sarah and Daniel. What all I knew was that they were here and they brought what I needed in terms of the projector and the supplies. I hadn't met Sundar before, but I knew Harjeet. And so what I'm thinking in the back of my mind is, these are my most valuable assets. You know, Sarah and Daniel, because you brought me my projector, this is going to help me with my project. So what I knew I needed to do was create that likability and trust that says, hey, it's okay, it's fine. And that's a part of being adaptable and coachable. Those are actually some of the soft skills that are described here. Initiative, flexibility, adaptability. And I end with the fifth one that I think is most important, and that's in any age, whether you're 27, 47, or 87, is continuously being coachable and unlearning some of the things that we've already learned. Here's an example of why. I don't remember the exact dates, but we all know this idea of slavery. In the United States, slavery actually used to be a common practice. It was okay. It took us many years, and I don't remember the exact dates. Some of you probably know better than I wasn't a history major, I was a communication major. But essentially, slavery ended, and we stopped this idea of slavery. So my point is sometimes we have to unlearn what we think is right and normal. And so that's just an example of slavery, about how we thought it was right, and then we learned and grew, and so we eventually realized that, hey, we can be coachable. We can learn something new. So those are the top 5 soft skills that I kind of sum up the top 10 of. So what does this look like? Essentially, 2 quick examples of what it looks like in terms of soft skills is doing whatever it takes. Because I'm at a point in my career where I'm 3 years into public speaking. Well, I'm pretty much trying to do whatever it takes. Last Thursday, I had to give a talk in San Francisco. What happened was, the day before I gave the talk in San Francisco, I had another person contact me that said, hey, can you speak in Elk Grove tomorrow? I said, what time? She said, 1:30. I said, great, I'll be there. Doing whatever it takes is actually part of that leadership and that initiative soft skill, because these are common practices that we have to live, whether it's in our work as project managers or in life. What I did was I spoke at 8 o'clock in San Francisco and 1:30 in Elk Grove, doing whatever it takes. And it comes from that mindset of that soft skill. Eye contact is, I think we all know it, but it's probably the bread and butter. It's the gold of soft skills. Eye contact essentially is, we've been making eye contact, and I could tell from the very beginning, we weren't quite sure where we were, but when you said, break down the walls, bring down the shield, we started to kind of have some connection. We're on the same way, and you've been smiling and head nods, and so I'm feeling so much comfort and love, and there's so much connection here. And so what I'm saying is it's a matter of the eye contact. We've been consistently engaged, and that speaks volumes. To be completely honest, we haven't had as much eye contact because I've been kind of focused. Frank and Allison, one of the biggest things is the sweetest word in any language is the person's name. Frank, Allison. I remember the names, but I haven't had quite the eye contact, so I need to do a better job. But you've just kind of been face to face, so it's worked out well.
I'm laughing at your jokes.
So being prepared, I could go into stories from here, but being prepared was actually about tonight. Being prepared was, hey, Sarah and Daniel, thank you very much, but it's not going to work. The laptop's not going to work, the projector's not going to work. So I said, okay, it's fine. I've already, wrote down my notes. I could give the talk without a PowerPoint if I needed to. But the other point about being prepared is this came from Sundar, because you had said, I was trying to put the flash drive into the laptop, and you said, oh, it's fine. Just can you pull it up off the internet, your email? I said, great, I already did it. I'd already sent the PowerPoint to my email, and that was how it was ready to go quickly. So soft skills is about being prepared and expecting the unexpected, because I knew, I'd done this many times, I knew that flash drive might not work, the projector might not work, so I covered my bases and sent an email of the PowerPoint, and that's how I pulled it up so quickly. So it's about being prepared. Essentially, I think the biggest concept of soft skills is how you treat each other daily. It's how we all do. And the reason why I'd say this is actually through how I became an instructor with Dale Carnegie. I'd consistently been out with Harjeet and singing at networking events, and I met different people and consistently treated people the right way. So what had happened was that when I applied to work with Dale Carnegie, Rob, who is the owner, Rob Scher, he owns the Dale Carnegie Training Institute here in Sacramento, he made a phone call to Rob Stewart, who is a mutual friend of ours via online social media. He saw that we were connected and they both knew each other and knew me. And so he called Rob and he said, hey, who's this Freddie kid? Is he the real deal? Can he come in and help us at Dale Carnegie? And Rob said, yes, dude, I don't understand how this kid gets it, but he just does. And Rob then called me and said, hey, would you like the job? But it was a matter of how I treated Rob, the other Rob, because the other Rob and both of them had never seen me speak before, had never actually seen me work. They had just met me at networking events like Harjeet's. And how Harjeet and I got connected and how I'm here is because we connected, we made eye contact, the feelings, and then he said, hey, would you like to come and take a chance? So that's that. I could go into some other stories about Kelsey and Elizabeth, but essentially these are stories to kind of highlight how important soft skills are. So when we bring the consistency piece back to how we're able to perform the soft skills, one of the greatest quotes by Aristotle about habits. Consistency is how the soft skills happen, because if we're consistently treating people the right way, if we're consistently being the right mentor and leader, that's kind of what helps us shape where we're headed. So with that, I mean, one of the biggest things, I think I passed around the uncommon life. The story there is, it's a matter of surrounding yourself with really good people. Well, how does this have to do with soft skills? What's the connection here? Well, with this daily habit of putting the right people around you, it brings out these consistent skills of communicating and treating people right. So with that, I met with a mentor today and he said, hey, here's a great book. And I started to realize when you surround ourselves around really good people, they can help us grow and develop. Energy is huge. Tony Robbins says that wherever you put your energy, wherever you put your focus, that's where it flows. Would you agree? Disagree? Yeah.
Energy, enthusiasm.
Right. Yeah, and so being consistent and attitude of gratitude, I think, is huge components. Obviously, repetition is the mother of skill, which brings us to the third point of feelings. And I think this is the bread and butter. This is the final piece that brings soft skills together. Because this book has actually helped shape me understand how soft skills are so important. The first chapter of this book talks about two things. What do people buy? People buy feelings. People pay more and value more the way you make them feel. Harry Beckwith talks about this, and if you start to realize, people that think about somebody that maybe you're like, how in the world would I pay this person $1,000 to come speak for an hour? How does that work? How does it work where if I'm a project manager, I'm going to pay somebody more than another person? It's the value that they bring. Maybe it's the technical experience, but you like and trust this person maybe more, and you value what they're going to bring to the table. So this is one of the greatest books. It's got some great points about how to just live solidly. It talks about, what is the time that you would send an email back to somebody? The answer would be 24 hours. Now, there's a lot of people that have different variations, but in terms of communication, within 24 hours is when you're supposed to respond. It's a side note, but it's actually in the book. So the greatest quote that I've ever appreciated, and it's the premise in almost everything that I work with, comes from Maya Angelou. I've learned that people forget what you said, people forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And when you think about soft skills, everything is about that quote. That quote summarizes the whole concept. It's a matter of how do I make Sundar feel? How do I make you feel? You have a nice smile. This kind of just happened.
I'm very ready for it.
Thank you for letting me come. I'm trying to kind of grow myself as a speaker, and so any opportunity that I can, and we didn't even get a chance to talk, and I felt a little bit bad because you had sent me an email, and it took me more than 24 hours, which I just talked about, to get back to you. And Harjeet had said, he followed up with me. He said, "Hey, are you coming?" I had already in the back of my mind put on my calendar that I was coming. I just hadn't communicated back to you, and I'm the first one to admit I make mistakes. I'm talking about communication, and I make mistakes. But I'm genuinely grateful, and finally we got back around a week ahead of time. Hey, I'll be there. I'm so excited. And so thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here, because, like I said, I'm trying to grow my own speaking career, and it means a lot.
Yeah, and it was great actually having you over, because for one thing, I already booked the room. Well, no, seriously, we needed, as I was saying, a deviation from the traditional technology-focused talks. So this is a great, segue or lead up to soft skills, and so again, thanks for introducing us. So it was sort of the way it got connected was very nice, and this is the kind of thing we really need in this forum. So everything sort of worked very well for us. So if you ask about how you made me feel, I feel, yeah, it was great that all this happened. And we were able to get together, an engaged group which can also appreciate all this. So, it's a win-win for everyone. Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, I appreciate it. And, I tried to be as genuine and as sincere as I could there. I mean, I even told you I admitted some of my faults where I said that I should have responded in 24 hours and I didn't. And you're kind of like, is he coming or not? And so I truly, genuinely am grateful that you gave me this opportunity.
Right. Have you actually tried to be a reality star or something? I think you'll do very well there. Because what I'm saying is you don't have any shyness about, expressing and even in front of an audience. That's great. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Well, I mean, yeah. Thank you.
Actually, you're saying that you're going to have a TV show, right?
Yeah, we're done. Yeah. So, my point here with this communication was I wasn't even thinking about you at the time. I was being completely focused. Our eyes were locked. I was having a genuine conversation. And my point is to try to highlight what the soft skills actually look like and what that feels like, essentially. And so it sounded like it felt.
No, it's definitely, I appreciate that. I mean, what you made with the table here.
Thank you. I was going to use that as my clicker, but that's not my clicker. I think I
Oh, there it is.
So there is a quote here. I actually saw this on Facebook a couple days ago. This gal, Katie, she's responsible for sending scholarships to students that apply. And so she said, 15 high school student scholarship interviews, all of them were ridiculously amazing and deserving, yet there were several that I could see and feel the spirit on them. It's that special something, it's the sparkle, it's what sets them apart. She posted that on Facebook and I saw that, I'm like, that's gold. That exactly talks about the Maya Angelou quote. So that's just something, to kind of practice it in real life to see where it's at. So we could do some practice stuff, but I'm going to move past that. This is me. Appreciate the time, guys. If you have questions, if I can help, if you're like, wait, I don't totally get what this was all about. What are we talking about with soft skills? Yes.
Well, actually, the list you had of like the top down soft skills or whatever, yeah. I mean, those are exactly the things as project managers that we have to do. That list could come out of our instruction manual.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
But, we have a lot of challenges as project managers, particularly when we get into like situations or some of us being consultants, maybe we go into an organization we don't work for, we deal with team, they put together a team, we don't necessarily select all those people, we work with project sponsors and other managers who may have different opinions as to what we're doing and so on. So we all face various challenges in our work. Do we have any good advice on those kinds of challenges? Could be, either people above us or below us or maybe difficult to work with?
I think the biggest thing is starting with yourself first. I think that's the biggest thing. If you're having challenges with somebody else, it's starting with yourself first. I heard a great speaker, Bernie Stoltz, who owns a company called Fortune Management. He's got project managers up the yin-yang that work with him. And I've heard him speak multiple times, and he always said, if you're having conflicts or issues with somebody you work with, start with yourself. And he says, what could I do better? What am I doing wrong? Where am I missing the ball here? And if you can go through about 3 or 4 questions with yourself about, am I doing the best I can to help this person? Then it's starting to have those crucial conversations. There's a book you might be aware of that came out called Crucial Conversations. And it's having the conversations about how are we doing? And getting to a point of, he says that the quality of our lives comes down to the quality of the questions we ask. So if we start with ourselves, let's say we're having an internal conflict, then we say, hey, am I doing everything I can? Am I giving this project manager everything they need? Do they have all the available tools? What can I do to help this person? Maybe why are they not meeting my expectations? Then the advice would be, okay, so I've checked myself first. Now, I'd ask them to give you the answers that you already asked yourself and say, hey, is there anything else you need to be successful? Do you not understand what's currently going on? You know, these are just questions on the top of my head, but starting to understand where they come from. And then if you are able to ask them all those questions and they seem to answer all those questions, great. The final question is, well, if you were in my shoes, here's how I feel. I feel like maybe you aren't doing, or maybe you've done this and this really good, because in terms of giving feedback, people never forget, they don't remember the positive feedback you give. They only give the negative feedback. And so if you're able to give them 3 solid positive feedback components with your basically the whole reason why you need change, then it kind of frames the question in a positive light that they say, hey, this person's really valued me. Hey, here's how I feel. If you were in my shoes, what would you do? How would you respond? And so by creating the ownership on the person that you're having conflict with, that then can help you. So I guess the short answer to your question is to start with yourself first.
A couple of things for you guys. Thanks for talking, it's good. First thing is observation on the list to share with you, and I think there might be consensus with the group here. Just the way that the list is just kind of ordered top to bottom. On the list, those type of skills, especially technical skills, that someone would have fresh out of school, a new grad. And as we go through life and learn, gain experience, and rise up project management ladder, yeah, we start getting better and better at communicating, leadership, problem solving. It took a long time. It wasn't something I was able to do fresh out of school. So anyway, I thought I'd share that with you because from a project management perspective, it's kind of a natural progression.
Kind of like a career maturity.
Yeah, so I think the group will probably agree with this somewhat. The second one is, well, I'm for a question, but I'm kind of curious to tag a little bit on John's question. So, you had a conversation here with Sundar, and it reminded me of many situations, personal interviews, storming on with new team members in the group. You can't tell, right? What I categorize it as, people are hard to read. I'm trying to understand or analyze, is it authentic? Is it really Freddie? Or are you just kind of going through some rote script, stock answers? And part of the time, you know, I'll say, he's just playing the tape. He's just playing the stock answer. You know, it's kind of hard to read. And I come up against this all the time. Interviews or different teams or different management units, and some people are real poker faces. They don't show that body language. It's really hard to read. And I don't have a formula. I don't have a script. It just over time I can try to figure. But man, some people it takes months to figure out, you know, how they communicate. So I don't know if there's any advice that you would have or suggestions when you get in a situation and I can't tell, you know, the person's hard to read. I don't know how else to say it. You can't tell if they're connecting or not connecting because they're answering questions and they're participating, but it just seems like they're off in a distance. It's not authentic. I don't know how to get through that sometimes.
Right, well, I would first start with Sundar, with our conversation. I know it was coming from maybe a side angle, but if you were Sundar, and you can share how you felt. Again, you and I were face to face. I wasn't looking at anybody else. I was totally in, and you knew all that other stuff that I shared with you. They didn't necessarily know that. How did you feel when I was having this conversation?
You know, that's why I mentioned you're not supposed to be sound like a joke. I said it could be the reality TV because one of the things in reality TV is the people who are actually in the TV, they want to show they're genuine, in spite of the fact there are probably 4 cameras or something capturing, right? Mm-hmm. So you somehow have to forget about that and just do your job, which is, you know, whatever it is, right? So that's what I felt when you did that. Even though you were in this audience, you sort of blanked them out or whatever it is, but focused on what you're doing, which is, you know, really. So that's a very good question. How do you judge?
Did you feel authentic, or do you think you?
Yeah, genuine. That's why I made the comment.
Responding, played answers.
No, I felt it was genuine. That's why I made the comment about the reality TV because that's exactly what I think the people who are participating in it have to sort of train themselves to sort of blank out all the other things that are happening and, be in the moment, right? So that's a very good question. So what you're really asking is, you don't know who is genuine when you're dealing, that's.
And what I would add to the second part is I wanted to have Sundar explain how he felt. I came from the most genuine place. On my perspective, that's how I've been. Now, I've been told many times, and personally and outside, that I'm able to hide it really well. So, I would agree with that as well. I was trying to be as genuine as I could.
Okay.
What I would do, if I were you, is, like I said, when Bernie Stoltz had said, the quality of our lives comes down to the quality of questions that we ask. I would encourage you to ask a few more questions, and the questions might be what I actually was going to have us do, but I skipped on it, because these are the type of questions that explain what you're talking about. So, the questions that I was going to have us do was for us to share about a greatest achievement, a proud moment, something you do that you really like to do. However you can, in whatever setting, maybe it's job interviews or whatnot, when you ask these questions, these are when you are able to get past that. So tell me about yourself, tell me about your strengths and your weaknesses, the generic questions, that Allison knows great better than I. But when you're able to ask those questions about, tell me about something you really love, that's when you're going to really recognize somebody's true authenticity. Because if you were to ask me that question, I love basketball with my whole heart. I genuinely love basketball. I play almost every day. I love it. Here's the other thing. Family means the most to me. And I would share, this isn't the setting for this, but I've shared this before in other talks. If you knew the real me, you would know that family is one of the most important things in my life. And you would know that my mom passed away within the last 2 months. So, you want to talk about authenticity, you want to talk about genuineness. When you ask these type of questions about, hey, who's the real Freddie? Or what's one of your greatest achievements? One of my greatest achievements was Pepsi, winning all this stuff. And I could go and talk about that, a proud moment. Or what do you really like to do? I really like basketball, So these are the type of questions that you're starting to celebrate communication, which is basically getting into the emotion. You can ask all the generic questions, but until you really get to know somebody, that's when you can start to see, hey, is this real or fake?
And I want to piggyback off that real quick, just because I had a very recent experience with this exact topic. So there was a newer recruiter in the office, and I was asking her, like, how are you doing? Do you feel good about your day? And she'd always be like, yeah, I know I'm good, or yeah, I understand what I'm doing. And I was always like, I'm not sure if that's real. Do you really feel good about your day? Are you happy about this? So it really wasn't until it was that conversation, that eye contact, that sit down, and let's really talk about this and asking those questions on, let's dig in, let's find out how you're feeling so that I can help you and you can feel good about your day. So it did take that little extra step to kind of recognize that and have that conversation.
And then that would bring me back to the quote that I shared with Dale Carnegie, is that to be interesting, you have to be interested. And so you started to become interested in him or her about, hey, tell me about the real you. We talked about work. How are you doing? How are you feeling? Oh, yeah, good. Yeah, sure. Everything's chill. Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. But when you really start to bring down the shields and you start to say, hey, who's the real person?
So I think what key thing I picked up for Freddie is try to use a line of questioning that exposes emotions, I guess, or feelings. So did that happen in your encounter? Did you get some emotions?
Yeah, I found out that she was having a hard time. So we were able to help fix what it was and how to help her, and so, yeah.
There's someone else going to find line. Be careful.
Yeah, there's their HR issues everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, especially I'm going to say that the first question, I don't know, in the state scheme of things, I don't even know whether you can ask that question, can you? The first one? The person with two minutes about great achievement, proud moment, something you do.
Well, those are separate questions. So one question is, tell me about your greatest achievement.
But again, that's what I'm asking. In the state interviews, like for state jobs, I never seen anything generic like that. It's usually very focused on the duty statement and things like that.
Yeah.
What do you think?
But some of them have open-ended questions.
They do?
want to see how you behave or you handle open-ended, meaning there's no right answer, no wrong answer, they just want you to talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
think-
but
I think that's right.
Yeah, Allison,
Some
that's
of
what I was going to
those,
say, that
you're not
when
being.
tech system is interviewing, they can probably ask these questions,
Yeah.
or a private employer, but, yeah, I'm saying the government employment is a little bit different, yeah.
Yeah.
You can find a
Right.
maybe a non-work related question to ask the candidate, just to, and sometimes they do that at the opening to get the interviewee more comfortable, right? So you, right off the top, you don't really have to think about technical things, because we
Mhm.
mostly work in technical fields. You just answer more about, common day, everyday question,
But I could see this also in her situation where maybe it's just somebody you work with, and that could be an opening. Hey, what's the greatest thing you've done in your life, kind of thing, or something badly phrased, but you say, just to
Yeah.
start a conversation and get to know the person.
Yeah, and let's say you're got a set questions and it's in the state, and hey, I gotta ask these 5 questions and I can't deviate. The only answer that I would give you there is to prompt the person to tell you more, or what else. Let's say the answer is tell me about yourself, or they say tell me about yourself. That's a generic question in a lot of interviews. So they start to tell me, I like basketball, this, that. Okay, tell me more. So you like basketball? Why? When you get into past the surface level, that's an easy fix to your solution, is just to ask the question of tell me more, or is there anything else there? Trying to get past the shield.
So beyond the facts.
Right. And that's where those soft skills, that 93% communication and nonverbals comes into play, because, you might say, tell me about yourself, and then you say, well, tell me more. Or you talked about basketball, why is that so important to you? Well, then the nonverbals change, because, the reason why I like basketball so much is because I've been through a lot of stress, and basketball is what's helped me get through my mom's chronic pain for 18 years. So that's why I like basketball. It helps get my thoughts right.
I wanted to thank both of you for this topic, because I think most of us come from technical background. Most project managers that I know come from a technical background, and then they grow into the position. But one thing that they don't teach us very much is the soft skills. That we have to learn through a lot of bumps in the road, trial and error, and yet it's a position where you're right in the middle of a lot of issues, and you're right in the middle of a lot of decisions, and right in the middle of technical folks, but also management and their decisions. And so learning to read people, learning to connect with people is something really, really crucial for us.
Yeah, and what I would just share with you on that, I understand, I don't and I do in terms of where you're coming from. One of my mentors wrote a book, and in his book he talks about how to get to where you're going to try to get to. And the model is you play, then you trust, and then you learn about each other. So what I would encourage you is, maybe you're in technical spaces where it's all technical stuff and then these soft skills develop, is to play. However that is for you, maybe that's rock, paper, scissors, I don't know. But when you play with somebody, you start to be like, hey, this William guy, he's pretty cool. We played together. We played that stupid game, rock, paper, scissors, and I can at least connect with him. And so developing relationships, if you're in a technical space where it's all these hard skills and you struggle with the soft skills, how to start to learn and connect with each other is by playing first. Whatever that looks like for you, maybe it's just bringing in a miniature golf set and play a little, hey, let's play a little putt-putt, and the first person that can get it in, get the jar up, and I don't know. But playing is I think the answer. I could be wrong, but that's what my mentor said.
I think like Mark pointed out too, the 10 skills that we kind of, many of us who have been in technical jobs most of our career, start, like he said, at the bottom rung. We're pretty good with the tech, but we have to kind of learn those other skills over time. And, you know, when I was your age, I wasn't this outgoing, you know.
Oh, no way.
If I was as outgoing then as I am now, I would have had to,
like 20 years later.
right.
Honestly,
That's my point, I would have had to be faking it.
yeah, absolutely.
And I, you know, I've even been accused of, you know, faking it. And I'm actually not. I'm not a faker. I am at the point in my life, in my career, you know, like the way I am, I'm really sorry.
Don't care.
Yeah,
No way.
yeah,
That's right.
at your age, I care a lot.
Don't care anymore.
Right? That's the thing, when you're young and early in your career, you care a lot about what other
You
people
try to make
think
good
of you.
impressions.
Exactly, yeah.
Later on, you like,
The dress code,
Well,
my
they don't like
advice,
it,
fashion
or there may be people in your office who don't like you and you have no idea why.
Yep.
What did I ever do to him? His loss, you know, it's like, screw it, I don't need that type of relationship. I don't have to be everyone's friend.
We've reached that level now. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty convinced the flaw isn't in my court. Could be wrong, but.
No, it's true, you know, when you, I think one of the things I want to say is that my husband and I talk about men and women communication. This kind of comes into
You
play.
mean it's different?
It's, let me explain why. I taught them how to speak girl language, which is how to read women's signals when they're not, because they do a lot of nonverbal, they're not going to tell you how they feel. That's the signal.
Oh, right.
The idea is,
Sure, you have to
I
figure
taught
it
him how
out.
to read that. You know, what's the sign? What is the sign? What does it mean when she says this? And so I taught him a little bit of nonverbal communication. One of the ones I taught him was this. You know, when I'm talking to you, if I do this, that means you're out. You know, so if he and I started dialoguing about how men and women communicate, and I made him watch like a Lifetime movie with the sound off. And I wanted him to see if he could tell what was going on, and he was able to do it because he was looking at the body language. You know, so it's something that both of us, you know, kind of talk about. But
93%.
you don't get trained on it. You don't get trained on it. But
I think you got the speaker for your next meeting.
No, girl language.
They're definitely looking for girl there.
Well, the only reason I mentioned it is because you're saying, how do you read people? And the answer is, you're not taught that. You're not.
That's right.
You know, women are actually, you know, kind of sort of brought up that way. It's a different, I'm gonna say it's a different culture in a way, you know, in general.
There's a lot of information behind this, and people much smarter than I. The one piece that I can give you to help you, I can give you 1,000 pieces. The one thing is to be aware of somebody's feet. Because feet, they don't lie in terms of nonverbals. Because here's the reason why. Our thought process starts here, and it has to take all the way down to our feet for us to be able to figure out where our feet are. And so if you just, you know, maybe tomorrow in the work setting, there's people talking, you know, if let's say we're talking and my feet are kind of like this,
Yeah.
well, my feet aren't giving you the attention.
Exactly.
And so the most simplest way to
Perfect
know
example.
nonverbals
Perfect
is
example.
Good.
Is that men and women?
there's a lot of other
Just
things,
women.
but that's the simplest.
What,
Men
yeah.
and
What he's saying is that, you know, people aren't conscious of their body language. They're not, if I'm trying to lie to you, I'm gonna try to lie to you with words, but, you know, the body can't follow that. It's, you know, it doesn't go that way, you know, so what
And
he's
the
saying
feet are
about
the
the
last
feet,
thing.
that's an
that-
example of what, you know, that the inconsistency thing you were talking about earlier. You know, so I'm kind of like, I'm gonna say the reason that we connected, I think, is because I've studied this a lot. Because I found out that reading people is important, you know, so, yeah, I agree with that. You know, I do agree with that.
Well, the percentage, the 93%, is that true for both men and women, or is there a variation?
To be honest with you, I don't know the answer, but what I do know is that's highly regarded in all the communications I've read, and that's just communication as a whole. I'm sure things could be a little different, but it's pretty close.
I would imagine, I don't know anything about that. The only reason I brought it up is because there was some cultural differences in the manner of getting in culture, in general, in general, to say was on the line more in general. So that's why, that's why I put my husband through girls' school,
And to piggyback on something I said earlier about when I was your age, when I was in my 20s and early in my career, I was, I wasn't a total introvert, but I wasn't as social as I am now. And I had a colleague, same age, who he had admitted to me, like over lunch or something, that he was very shy in school and so on, kind of like I was. A lot of us techies were that way, so technology probably. But when he got into the workplace, he was very outgoing. And maybe because it was maybe a newer style, it came off, sounded kind of fake. When I hear you talk as a sales and marketing kind of a guy, it seems genuine. But that's because you have a knack for it. You told us your story. You had a history of just being a natural at this. But when you fake it, because you think it's going to benefit you in the workplace, I think that can be as detrimental as just being yourself. Even if yourself is kind of quiet and shy. You know what I mean?
100% is you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess the thing is there. First, I would say this. I could never do what you do. I can't even imagine on the technical side. That is not my space. When you talked about having the soft skills, yes, that's something I'm good at. But the technical skills, doing the type of work that you do, I can only imagine. I couldn't do it. Like, you put me in a box, you put me in front of a computer, I'd be like, we even had a conversation with you. I'm like, I can't do this. Like, get me out of here. Sundar, can you get this thing going? I just can't do that. And what I can do with people, so I'd say that first. The other piece is, it comes from genuinely caring about people.
Right.
Coming back from that quote of, people don't care what you know until they know how much you care about them. And that's what the whole thing's about, is feelings. Maybe it's this woman thing, the feeling thing. We have a hard time maybe as guys to be able to express that, but essentially it's just asking the right questions to get these answers.
Well, how do you feel about basketball?
Right, yeah, right.
But my point is, I think if you try to put on a certain air of being an extremely sociable, outgoing person when it's not really you, I think people can sense that it's fake.
I agree.
But in my case, I think people realize, sense that it's genuine because it's something I've developed little by little over the years. It wasn't something I tried to do in my 20s.
I think you can be genuine without being outgoing, per se. You don't have to make presentations and get up in front of people, but you can show the genuine, or show that side of you with each individual person that you interact with each day.
Right.
Yeah.
If I'm talkative,
that works for you.
in a talkative mood, I'm really talkative. I'm not trying to impress anybody.
All right, thanks Freddie for your great to have you over here. And before we leave, a couple of things. One is Freddie will hopefully send the presentation, and we can put it on the forum library. We're trying to keep it up to date. So what I do is with the sign up sheet, I send the information over to. Yeah. I basically was sending an email with instruction on how to claim a PDU if you're a PMI member, and also to, basically point to the library, because usually we upload the presentation as soon as we get them from the speaker. So, the library is actually now well populated in the PMI Technology Forum, as well as the other forums, the scheduling forum and all that. So there's a lot of content going back many years now.
Right.
And this will be a good one. This is a good addition here.
Yeah, actually the scheduling forum, now there's every 2 months for those who aren't keeping good track of that. It's going to be
Yeah, we just got one invitation for April, I
Yeah,
think.
was that April?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so this would happen in April?
Yeah, it is.
Right, yeah, February, April, June, yeah, we got the room for the
Alright.
entire year, every other month.
Yeah, and if anybody, if you want to pursue the soft skills stuff more, I'm happy to give you some Dale Carnegie free information. I can give you that. Just let me know via email. I also can do, my partner does Dale Carnegie trainings. So if you're familiar with this stuff, we do the soft skills. And if you're looking for a speaker, my information, everything's at freddysilvera.com. So I'm happy to do whatever I can.
Business card?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I'll leave all my information's here, but I'll give you a card.
I know I wanted to ask you, Freddie, there was the author that you put up there, you said he's a local Sacramento guy?
How
Yeah.
about
Flip back to those books.
Yeah,
Yeah.
is he someone we could get to come to one of our, I'm thinking
He's-
ahead to Russian War Day. Is he
I,
local and?
Well, we,
you can, you
Yeah.
can personally try. Hal Elrod is,
Does he still live here in the area?
no, you can try. He's like a couple notches under Tony Robbins. He's a really big deal,
Right.
and I'm guessing he's in like a $5,000 range.
So you don't know if he does any pro bono work for nonprofits?
Yeah, you can try.
Had to ask.
Yeah, but, yeah.
unlike us, we.
I got it down, right?
What do you know?
Good sound, Jay?
What do you know?
I'm just trying to be honest with you.
No, that's
I
fine.
want it. I would love for him.
So he doesn't live in,
No, I
California
don't,
anymore?
I'm not quite sure, but I know he grew up in this area. Yeah, he grew up in the Carmex area.
So, yeah, he's been talking about hotel transportation.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.